Welcome back to episode 4 of Anna Ed Talks. On today's episode, we're honored to be joined by Mr. Bhavin Shah, a leader whose career sits at the intersection of education, innovation, and global vision. As the CEO and director of Education World and Parents World, India's top education and parenting magazines, he has been shaping conversations that influence thousands of schools, families, and policymakers.
Mr. Shah is also a mentor with the World Academy of Career Program in Singapore, working closely with International Baccalaureate Career Program, managing director of the Associate School Access USA College Alliance Program, and strategic advisor to the Boarding School Association of India, a management graduate, a UN procurement agency, where he helped launch iconic brands like Gillette Mark III, Duracell, and Oral-B in the Indian market.
But what truly sets him apart is not just the breadth of his roles, but rather the depth of his commitment. Having personally visited over 4,000 educational campuses across India and abroad, very few people can claim to have witnessed education at such a scale and still remain deeply engaged with the day-to-day activities and challenges most schools face. His career reflects both vision and grounded experience, making him one of the most respected voices in India's educational ecosystem. So, sir, you've been deeply involved with educational discourse through your magazines. And my question to you is, what first inspired your passion for education?
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me on this podcast. Though these have been series that I've been attending and I've been telling, but let me tell you, coming here and every time conversing with students, this was my major reason, or you can say the interest that grew to contribute to education. So this were the students who inspire. And obviously, while in the corporate world, the so-called products which were there and the product marketing and the business was being discussed, the whole germination of a proper economical growth would have only come through if there is a strong base of education, which comes from an inspiration that students would come and join the workforce. And this is where largely when we started, or particularly I started feeling the gaps that inspired me to start contributing to fill that gap. And I wanted to see that we, as you and I and every one of us, are primarily looking at filling up this gap. This was most important, that all the stakeholders, that is educators, parents and students, come together to really solve this gap. And this was the sole inspiration. Basically, this was something to research, to reflect upon, that what you would have gone through, and is there any scope for continuously filling up this gap, so that in coming time, because this is not something a generation would fill in, but it's cumulatively that all the stakeholders, what I call it is, from the corporate world, what I call it the real earning per share, that is EPNS, would have come through the educators, parents and students, which is the real EPS of education, and that was the biggest inspiration.
Well said, sir. As the CEO of Education World, what trends have you observed in real education that might not be visible from a classroom or a single campus?
To be honest, friends, see, though we are defining it as real education, but education has to be real. I mean, there can't be education which is unrealistic and realistic, correct? It's very, very important to understand that today when we are speaking and we have to speak out our heart about differentiation, it's actually a sad state, okay? And why this is a sad state? Because while anyone who analyzes that what is important and how you have to differentiate, then the word real comes in, correct? And it's very important to note that today we have to define what is real education, where it all stemmed out. So unlike any reflection that is going to be there, and you or primarily any philosophy of education that you would have believed in, we were always looking at our roots that we would have come from, and in that roots you need to really know that anything that you are talking about real, are they rooted back? It may be your culture, may be your tradition, may be the way your living or your whole ecosystem is built. Okay, so it's very important that at this juncture, when we are looking at bifurcation of what is real education, certain core aspects has to be looked into. Okay, and according to me, I think so. If you look at the culture of what the Indian history and India has been about, it is high time that we reflect upon what were our strengths and bring that reality back, because you will see the whole circle which is getting completed. Though in the era of independence we were kind of forgotten, and probably we were more used to what others used to direct us, saying you have to do this particular type of job and this type of particular behavior, which was been shoved upon. Okay, so say for example, we have gone through that slavery mode, correct? And while we were absorbing all this, it was now that world is looking back upon us, saying whatever we had in real, by way of the rich nature of culture that we had, the rich nature of all the gaps in learning, which we call it now, saying in a formal environment there is a K-12 education, or there is something which is going up to the collegiate level, and then there is a process to get a particular individual placed in a economical environment. This was all properly scientifically made by our ancestors or by our legacy, okay, which probably was forgotten. And this is very much the era where we are talking of Viksit Bharat. We are talking about the world power looking at us. We have started building up this in real sense. It is not just on paper. And primarily I'm of the opinion that you are the future. The way you are shaping up things and the way the learning is culminating into result, this is where I see the major differentiation is bringing back, and this is how probably the real education needs to be reflected on, and the terminology of real has to be brought in back.
That was a lovely answer. And my next question to you is, you just spoke about legacy and memory, and a point that stood out to me the most was your statement about how we need to look back and we need to grow with respect to our roots. So could you elaborate on how we can do that as a society?
See, it's very simple in certain aspect. We try to overanalyze, and I say the real education starts at dinner table. Your real education starts with your grandparents, and it's very very important to note when we are talking about legacy and roots. Maybe just a simple a geographical chapter. So maybe the movement of sun or moon and how our simple calendars were been designed. They're deep scientifically made with all your physics, geography, and all the fundamentals of science and culture that were been already embedded. So somewhere you will look at the day-to-day life that a person would have gone through. Unless current scenario, you will say that you are educated only when you get a degree. This barrier was not there when we were talking of say 100 years, 200 years, or 500 years before. And rightly, as you mentioned about saying how you can reflect upon. So these are the systems that you can reflect upon in our legacy, that how they've been built. You go to temples, you go to cultural sites, you go to a simple fort. They are all very scientifically built. Now, if you check the data, you may not get the architecture as a degree holder who have built that fort, correct? But you will see the deep science may be preserving. We talk about conservation of water now, but this conservation of water, energy saving, till each and every smallest aspect was deeply thought during building a construction site also. Okay, So it is very, very important that while we look at roots, this were the rich legacy that we already had. It was, again, it was a bit of a sad aspect that we bucketed into various subjects and we wanted everyone to learn a particular subject. But the holistic sense of education, according to me, and when you research down, and there are various books that have been researched, we were the creators, originators, and the rulers of the content which prevailed in our history, which prevailed in our mechanism, in our science, and we were actually the brightest of the spot on the planet, which actually propaganded how this has to be done.
Great, sir. So I would like to know about now when you spoke about real education. So what's your opinion on the aspects of education which are often overlooked in India's system?
Now this is now we are getting it a little bit more on the politics side, on the Indian education system, and the realistic side. Okay, so this is something, and I'm happy that as a youth of India, you are asking this question because I'm going to ask the same question to you to follow. Okay, it's very, very important that you get involved into the Indian education system, and this is how probably we can together better it from time to time. But let us see again the genesis of how this Indian education system should be evolved, correct? And particularly you are currently contesting it against the real education, correct? So okay, certain things we got inherited. Probably neither everyone who's looking or visualizing and this podcast has been reached upon, or you or me, we are not the generation, or it is not because of us that we have reached to this Indian education system. But let us everyone understand that we are a complex system on this earth. Sheer the size of the population that we have, the entire dynamics that an Indian education system, or for that matter any Indian system, is been generated. You can't compare it with any country which is of the Western world, or for that matter with anyone. We have our unique challenges. At the same time, we have our USPs also. Okay, the way this whole system has been developed is been inherited by, you can say, British. Okay, now obviously we wanted some kind of a guiding path, so there were good things that had come in, but then we never had the prime criteria that this Indian education system only was dependent on the foreign system or the Western world, because we never inculcated the very first aspect of education was research, which we never inculcated from that system. What we did was we directly did an adoption. Now what happened in the adoption stage, certain things were so-called implemented into an area which probably say certain region would have copied it. So if there was highest influence of British during the western part of India or the northern part of India, it started complying into the mechanism where only the test based mechanism was the criteria or the benchmark that one can go up the ladder. It was not the knowledge system which was based to go up the ladder. It was your so-called transcript or your result on a particular day that you would have done good, then only you could have gone up, which probably created all of our mechanism, and the systems were rooted where only one particular aspect of assessment was being looked at. And Indian education system has gone through multiple stages, primarily the stage of government's will to support education system, which predominantly was been too much politicized and no due attention was been given on increasing the investment in education. And this is what education world as a medium since 25 years have been combating. At the same time, we want not only a particular segment to fight for it, but we want youth to raise the voice, that government can make it as a national priority and also priority which could be there as a number one item on the national agenda, where not only the investment part, but at the same time on the research part, it has to really grow so that we can systematically improve the Indian education system.
A question I would like to follow up with is the fact that you spoke about how the system used to be very rigid and we used to have transcripts that we had to present, and that was the only way of growing. But I read pretty recently that nowadays people are foregoing degrees and they're jumping directly into fields of jobs. So, what key parameters and indicators do you think are true measures or indicators of growth and success in a person?
That's a good question, and this is what my recent. I'm crusading for a movement, which is something on basis of uh, skills versus scores.
Yes.
Okay, and primarily what I believe is that entire system in education needs to give equal opportunity to both these aspects, not only in one aspect of which is scores. And this is how I believe that with youth and educators coming together, the excellent work that a school would have done in a holistic way to promote and build holistically the character of a child, and coming on to the youth stage where we figured out saying a particular youth had a fabulous skill set while school would have imparted. Unfortunately, it was been only rated to the final transcript. So my take to change this could be that there has to be an equal proportions. I would vote for 50-50. So it shouldn't be saying only your transcript is 100% or your competitive exam becomes the only so-called ladder to go up. But 50% of the skills the higher education also should be looking at. So I think so. You are blessed to have a fabulous program which is very, very futuristic, which is on the careers development, and careers development comes through that skills, and you are spearheading various skill sets that these schools are teaching you. So there should be a weightage given on all the 365 days work that you would have done versus the one day of the test. One day of the test, yes, it is important, but it cannot give 100% weightage. So my vote for this particular change would be 50% skills and 50% of the test, that any further gateway that a student gets should be given a weightage. So may it be a college, may it be a skills development institute, or anything that you are going up from high school should be given a 50-50% weightage.
Correct, sir. With such great experience and expertise, if you could redesign the education system in India, what would be the top 3 priorities?
Wow. First of all, I would want a youth voice, and tomorrow means, as a criteria, as a youth who would have used education, they should be contacted for deciding the future. But having said that, this is not going to be acceptable. Our parliament is going to throw it out in the first go. So if the wish list, if I have to say that what are the 3 priorities. So let me tell you, and to all your viewers, it's very important that this is a very interesting chapter, and it's high time that this has to be looked into. But one of the first priority that I would wish is disconnecting the power between center and state. There is always a tug of war whenever it comes to decision which has to be made, maybe for the boards level or any textbook level. You see there are uproar that are happening, where changes in the textbook that are coming in, and then the whole politicization is happening. But the major thing is to de-link between the state and the center. I would wish that the first priority should be each state should be given an empowerment the way they would want the education policy to be deployed in that particular state, and full independency to a private mechanism. That means you are in a private school, you should be given that liberty, because benchmarks of a private school would always uh, each and every individual which is involved in that private school is going to decide. So I would want to de-link this, that there is a dependency of a center or and versus state. So I want to de-link that. Okay, that's number one. Number two, if my priority comes up about the changes that could be done, it should be completely looked upon what particular benchmark a particular institute wants it. So, for example, everyone would say that yes, if suppose I've been given a sports team and I send a sports team to compete in a particular so-called say competition, and only two teams are there, okay, what is going to happen if there are two teams that are going to be there and you become the third team and you say that I won it? Probably that's not the right benchmark, correct? So let this democratization of the benchmark be given to each individual institution, and let the vote come from the students and the parents, that would they want such kind of benchmarks. That means if you guys tell to your parents and parents tell, yes, I'm happy that my kids are there where two teams were there and they are happy then competing with it, only two people, no problem, okay. But there is a next door school which is very happy that yes, I want to make my students more competitive and I want to send them to a place where there are hundreds of the teams and let them show the material, at the same time the levels of it. That means it is not only state, city or the national level, but at the international level. And the last thing which I would want is a very strong body of teachers or educators. I think so. According to me, I'm completely convinced. In fact, teachers should come together to elect also the prime minister of a particular country or our country. They should have the right, because this is the body which is dealing day in day out to shape the future of the nation, correct? But the people who are writing and shaping the future of the nation, unfortunately, they have no voice, neither they come together to create that voice. So I think so there has to be, if my wish goes, and my last wish that can come true is, probably in a particular parliament, the 50% seat, if at all any reservation comes in, the reservation should be of teachers, and educators come together to really make things happen with the youth, and the economy wants it. Thank you.
Good.
That's an amazing thought and beautiful perspective to have. But my question to you would be, a lot of people these days now view education and the entire teaching industry as a business. It's not just about imparting knowledge anymore, it's also involving the monetary gains. And I believe that it's really hindering how different people in different sectors of society are gaining education. And we're not allowing them to have access to the education that more privileged people would have. What's your take on this?
So if I understand it, what you want me to ask is that this commercialization or the business side that is coming in, and people are labeling education as business. Is it a right thing which is going in, and probably it is restricting the underprivileged to participate, or there is some kind of an unfairness that is happening?
Yes.
Okay, so let me draw a different perspective on this. See, the interpretation on the business side, if you consider it by way of accountability, then it's a very good thing. Okay, because anything which is going to come by way of an accountability, that is going to be accepted by each stakeholder. Okay, now in the process, now let's assume that for an example, a particular education institute, after they are charging fees and after they are doing all the hard work, there is something which is, you may call it in the business sense as profit, but I'll call it as something which is surplus. Okay, this surplus, how it would have come. Now when you're students of business and when you're students of an accounts, the surplus would have come up because of the efficiency that the management would have done in managing each and every day-to-day aspect. Okay, Now, if that efficiency by way of the surplus is arrived, if it is invested to fund an underprivileged family or a kid, or give scholarship, or reinvesting it into the right cause, then let's take this word of business in a positive way. Okay? And let's communicate this business way to everyone. And when I say everyone, is not limitizing to the four walls of an education institute. It's very, very important. These gaps of this understanding are created because of the lack of transparent communication. The trend typically in education institute, it used to be that it was limitized to the parent community or the student community which belonged to them. I think so that needs to democratize. The prime role of an education institute also to build up the community. So in the surrounding, whomsoever are there, maybe it could be a roadshow, it could be one letter, it could be a project, whatever that mode of communication would be. But it is very, very important to have each and every aspect of an education institute, because that's the reason constitutionally we are guided by a trust law. And what is a trust? Trust is having a trust of people who are there in the community, correct? And they would have built up for a good cause that you can build up education. So each and every, to me, like a for-profit stock exchange company which publishes annual report, this annual report of the work that education institute has done, a school has done, a college has done, or a university has done, should be communicated like a public forum, right? And this is how you're going to reduce this gap of people understanding, saying, oh, there is an institute which is making money, and probably it's only meant for, the privileged crowd and not to the someone who's needy. This gap can easily be matched with multiple of the program, where an efficient management of an education institute with the surpluses that they have, they can deploy it with the causes and the projects that they can declare, where everyone could be involved, and this is how you will eliminate this gap.
Sir, at the 12th Early Child Education National Conference in Hyderabad, you said earlier that early childhood education forms the bedrock of lifelong learning. So how can schools across India excel in that?
Wow, okay, so this is excellent. You have gone deep into what work I would have done. Thank you very much. And this is very dear to my heart, and probably let me also tell your viewers, this is how my entry also happened in education. Okay. So while it's an interesting story, I'm going to sum it up very fast. While in the corporate background, I was launching largely all the fast-moving consumer goods like the Gillette Mark III, Duracell, and Oral-B. An interesting journey came up when there was a German company which were basically into teaching learning aids, but in India we used to call it as toys. Okay. Now, let me have an interaction. You guys have been into kindergarten, correct?
Yes.
And what do you see in your kindergarten? Were there what you call as the teddy bears and various of the so-called equipments that were there that used to be called as toys?
Yes.
Correct? There will be like the ball pool that would be there, or the splash pool that you will talk and everything. But very peculiarly, I was being taught by Germans that they are not toys, they are teaching learning aids. So you would have an abacus, correct? You would have like pyramids, and you have multiple of the beads and stuff like that, right? Which probably was been understood saying this is toys, and you need to play with it and so on and so forth. So the very first understanding that was been improved by the Germans to me is, you have to look this as teaching learning aids, not as toys. Because toys, there are chances that a particular toy would be used by you and used by you in a different way. But when a teaching learning aid comes in, it has to be worked upon together. So this made me think about saying, I never ever thought a perspective or a viewpoint that this teaching learning aids is a serious aspect in the development of a child's brain, maybe 2 year, 3 year, or 5 year, and it has a deep impact. Okay, including I was being taught about how the colors should be shown to a 2 year old or a 5 year old or a 10 year old, right? Like the red combination of red, green, blue, and so on and so forth, and how this particular so-called toys have to be used in a team rather than solo. Because what typically I used to see was a child is crying when I used to go and walk in into a home or a school. They will be given a teddy bear and given a corner. They take this teddy bear and sit with the teddy bear. They never ever were told to come together and play with their friends. Okay. Now this was a very important aspect that I started researching on, and my research brought to that level that early child care and development becomes the core pillar or the bottom of the pyramid to shape up the entire character of an individual. And we largely the history in India that this was a completely neglected part. Okay, neither a parent, neither a school was giving any importance to it, and this is where education world also started the first early childhood global conferences. We invited all the views and opinions, including policymakers, to make it as a part of policy, because it's very simple, my friends. If your plinth or if your base is not strong, none of the things that you're going to do ahead probably either is going to be full of struggle, or you have to learn every time and there will be struggles in learning. And I'm so happy that school like Anna or progressive mindset has really taken the early childhood development in a very serious way. At the same time, all the developmental aspect for a particular child are being grain rooted with the philosophies and pedagogies that can really create a strong foundation by which, when we spoke earlier about this grades versus skills and so on and so forth, becomes actually redundant because your foundation skills were very, very strong. So I'm completely for this, and I keep on raising my voice to have a strong education, early childhood education, not only policy for the school but nationwide, including Anganwadis, which has to be strengthened with nutrition. I mean, you are privileged enough that you get nutritious food, but at early child care, with the care that we are talking of, has to be complemented with the right kind of nutrition, so that all the science of the body, mind, the physic and the soul all comes together for a all-round development.
So, since we're already on the topic of foundational years in a child's life, what role do parents play in this cycle?
So, let me tell you, I think so. These all questions are very interesting, but somewhere I'm again reflecting back, saying why this question has to come up, right? Have we forgotten certain of the basics? It is something like this. That today, when we are talking about profit, didn't you learn math at your basic level? So while when we are talking of parenting, and I again repeat, the first class of education is at the dinner table. So what I mean by that is, and parenting is not something that would have come by way of an accident, correct? It's a duty, it's a responsibility, okay? So it's very, very important that it shouldn't happen like a prescription, that a parent is writing a prescription of parenting and giving it to the school, saying, hey, look, parent comes in and tells, hey, look, this is my kid and this is my prescription, please prepare my child, correct? That shouldn't be parenting. It's a responsibility, everyone needs to get involved. It's a cohesive force that equally for parent, the education cycle should continue. It shouldn't be a prescription tomorrow written by a parent to a teacher saying do this, but it should be a continuous process of learning, and parenting as a responsibility also is a part of education, okay? And that education process cannot be delegated. You can't have like you have in companies, delegate a particular duty that I am a parent but I am giving my parenting duty to you. It cannot happen in that way. So there is a wave that has started, or probably they have been believed that parenting the multiple aspects of parenting have started getting into discussion. But please again look back at our rich heritage, how parents used to be their first gurus, because in the days in the past it was only at the mastery level. If suppose you were like a warrior, okay, to 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 really have the mastery of the skills, you will get on to the gurukul or you'll get on to the takshilas, but your basic of your education has was being taken care always by your parents, your peers. And to the modern era, the so-called, if I have to term this as the 21st century or the modern era, please reflect back on the Krishnamurti Foundation philosophy and the pedagogy. It reflects upon the same theory of peer learning. So each one of them teach one, and this is how the peer learning used to be very very successful, and it is successful still now. And this is what parents has to understand, that the prime responsibility will start from home, and your prime education, the fundamentals of education, your culture, behavior, manners, it will all start from your dinner table.
Well said, sir. Given your role as a mentor with the World Academy Careers Program, how do you see IBCP curriculum fostering real education and preparing students for global careers?
Yes, so this is something which was very dear to our heart, and we figured out saying, and this, by the way, this was all learning some positives of COVID, because at that time, I always say that whenever you are challenged, and the challenge reaches to that level of existence, then you have to innovate, or you have to start striving hard, thing what's going to be the next phase. And this is where the careers program, so-called thought, came in. And luckily, while all these gaps we were reflecting, one of the major gap, and I'm appealing again to all the viewers, mainly to parents, that do not get included into the grade obsessed society. Please create the society of creators. Please be in the society of inventors, but not look at the grades. There is this strong, very strong environment which has been built up, that the decision of the child's future can only happen if you have strong grades, and nothing else will come on the path for progress in a child's life. I can vouch, and now I can prove, these two smartians that you are seeing over here, I can write it on a stamp paper, that while we were conceiving the entire career program, we were looking at, and by the way, we never knew that International Baccalaureate already had it. I was planning to have this careers program to be incorporated independently in the Indian education system. And this is where, when we were talking to students, when we were talking to educators, it happened so that till grade 10 everything was excellently done in a particular school, and parents used to be very happy. But students then started figuring it out, that while they were interested in a very certain skill set or a career option, it was not been given when they used to complete their high school, or when they wanted to go to a particular field in a college. And there were a lot of this cultural and the education learning gaps, that student used to complain, saying, we used to have fabulous education in school, but no sooner we landed up in college, these subjects never appealed to me. It never ever connected with me with the real world. And that was a eureka moment in the closed doors of this COVID environment. We started researching, and some of the fellow mates that were there in the education space, IB came forward and said, the way you are thinking, exactly we already had, and it's very well successful across the globe. And to my surprise, I didn't find it in India. So this is where like-minded people came together. We started developing this program, got it incorporated, and let me tell you that it does not need any kind of validation, whether any particular university or any particular a company or an individual likes it or not like it. Just speak to the students, just see how things are being taught or how this entire curriculum is framed. Anyone who's of the progressive mindset or anyone in this world, if they don't believe saying education has to be of real world, I'm sorry, let me tell you that they are, you may call them as like the old furnitures, okay, which probably no one want to look at, correct? So irrespective people believe in it or not, let me tell you, and again I'm repeating, these two smartians who are here, and I'm again vouching this and I'm writing on a stamp paper, please look at them. I'm having a bet that this careers program students, wherever they would be, I'm not going to rate them saying, oh, they are what packages that they are earning. Please understand that package or the so-called money aspect is a byproduct which will be completely insignificant. The most important aspect is the how that character is developing, and through this career program the all-round character that has been developed, they will be always a lifelong learner and they would always succeed in life in anything that comes to that strand. Maybe for that matter, if they want to pursue a business or a job, or for that matter, if they want to contribute their intellect back to the society, nation, or the world, they'll be highly successful. It is only through the theory that I was mentioning about balancing the skills versus the score. So I'm very happy and very optimistic on the careers program, that it has already developed very well throughout in India, and we are seeing the signs of this so-called old furnitures which are also started accepting it.
Thank you so much for the compliment, sir. I'm pretty sure everyone knows that the students these days are pros at procrastination. And I'm sure everyone has heard of the infamous ChatGPT. And at the NCOE Summit in 2025 at IIT Delhi, you spoke about AI and the digital divide it can create. So, how can we ensure that it allows students to grow without stemming their critical thinking?
Okay, so this is now futuristic, and probably I would also now start using ChatGPT to answer it, because nowadays it has become a norm saying, okay, you want to first search, forget about Google, ask ChatGPT, correct? Okay, so see, these are the worlds that we need to balance the act, okay? I'm of the firm opinion that the human approach always is always going to win. But the way you would have the vehicles are going to change, okay? But the driver is always going to be a human, okay? You may apparently debate with me that there are robots also who are going to drive. That's an apparent meaning, but obviously someone has to ride. I mean, at the end, if tomorrow if I'm saying a human is going to drive a vehicle, and there will be various mechanism of these vehicles, could be AI, could be generative AI, there could be virtual reality world, and various of the things that don't come in. But it's very important to know eventually it's meant for whom? It's meant for human, correct? So now the critical question that you have asked is, in this world of this four wheels, and these four wheels are going to be of tech, digital revolution, or ChatGPT and AI, probably is human going to be less of the critical thinking, correct? Or less of the brain, you may say, right? I don't think so. And again, I want to reflect everyone to go back and search the history. While there was no electricity, obviously there were what you call it as this gas burners, or the poles which would give light through a gas, correct? And that was the most innovative aspect in the human. At that time people thought that this is the most innovative aspect, and nothing beyond an innovation like this can happen to the earth, where now we have got a light, and there is a fire which is built by way of some fossils, and there was an energy, and this is how the streets were lit up. And nothing was being thought saying something like way of electricity is going to come in. So while there were engineers which were called as the lit up engineers who used to go and lit up the light or the fire on the poles, their duty was saying, I'm like the current age AI operator, because he was feeling saying proud about it. This is a very innovative thing that I'm doing. No sooner that era was in existence and people never thought something else is going to come in, no sooner electricity came in, people thought we are going to be jobless. Okay? Because now on a click of a button, the lights are there, right? So it's this evolution has always been there. It was technology also 500 years back, and there is technology which is also going to be here, but it's never ever going to replace a human brain. This world has to exist together. You have to just now. It's very important that all of you, including parents and students, it's something called as you have to have a self discipline or a line that you have to draw it between this world. If you really want to be called as a dependent, then this particular wheel is going to overtake the driver. Okay? If you know, as a parent, as an educator, and as a student, you know how much to utilize at what level, then you will be an enabler. Otherwise, you will disable your mind. You know, you have in your app enable and disable on your phone. If you're going to disable it, then I'm sorry, it's going to be disastrous. But if you're going to enable in a way where all the good part, you can ignite it for a good cause, human cause, or for your objective and a mission cause, this is one of the biggest benefit that Indian education or the world across is going to be looking forward, and we need to embrace it, that's for sure.
Well said. As we are in the 21st century, sir, we need to cater to the new generation. So, which is that one subject you insist every school must focus on to meet the needs of the future?
So the one subject, obviously, I don't know whether this subject would be approved, but according to me, I mean, we don't have any degree on values. Okay, I think so. One most important subject can be brought back, and it's very difficult to evaluate. Is the value chain or the value system? Okay. It's irrespective of technology or irrespective of your math, science, and everything. The greatest of your degree, maybe of the Ivy League or the IITs and everything, we have seen the current disturbance that is happening in the world, and we have seen in the past also where the disturbances by way of wars, calamities, and everything that has happened. By the way, these are the people who are highly qualified. Okay, so if at all this so-called subjects that we are trying to build, which is going to build the qualification, then we have already seen the results of it. Okay, where the biggest of the scams or the biggest of the wars and the coming wars also that we are seeing on water, on clean air, everything that is going to be probably we have to strive for it, is by the way managed, ruled by a qualified person. But then also we are seeing that these wars are happening. So according to me, the subject that should come back or should be given a highest weightage is going to be on values, because knowledge is in abundance. Okay, you have technology who's going to train you and guide you, but if you are not going to be binded by a value chain system, then probably you can't avoid any disaster. It's going to happen.
True, sir. In your recent podcast with Edu Voice, you mentioned how India's true power lies within the small cities and towns. So, how do you think they contribute to India's vision to Viksit Bharat?
Wow, I think so. This is the mother of all podcasts. Now, all my talks have been captured. So it's very important, friends. I mean, what are we talking about when we are talking about nation like India? Metros. I mean, forget about that. Tomorrow, you don't get Zomato or a Blinkit just when you cross 200 kilometers or 150 kilometers from here. Okay, so when we are talking of a world where the so-called advanced thing are limited to probably 16 to 18 cities, then what India we are talking of, what Bharat we are talking of. So we belong obviously to the nation where this entire diversity of everything that we talk about means there's a saying that every 100 kilometer the dialect also changes, correct? And this is where I strongly believe that the equity amongst all the urban and rural should happen, where the movement and the impact, if it has been measured and seen in the tier 2 tier 3. Okay, metros are there where people come in a way that the development is only seen because there's a concentration of development in a particular metro. It could be India, it could be anywhere, but maybe when we talk about what are we known as a country, we are known as an agrarian country. Okay, and this agrarian entire movement or the agrarian economy is dependent on this tier 2 tier 3 development. And to me, the right kind of development, if it has to happen for any government, any youth or any education institute, it should start from the villages. And if in that village, if one particular project which should be succeeding is only education, education and education, if that is going to happen, I'm telling you, this brain drain, this urbanization and everything is going to stop, because each one of these villages, if they are self-sustained, I'm telling you, the families are more happy to be there where they are, and they succeed in each and everything that they do for their village, rather than having a divide in the family where some people are in the metro and their families are in the villages.
Definitely a interesting take, a unique one as well. So, to end our question and answer session, what's one life lesson that you learned outside of the classroom that shaped you as a person?
Okay, so someone who knows me, so by the way, everyone would have, or whomsoever would have known me in childhood, first of all, let me tell you, one would say that Bhavin cannot speak. This was me. Impossible that any of my teacher, that if suppose I meet, or anyone from my friends or families, basic thing was that I had terrible fear of speaking, meeting or proving anything. Okay, so one thing which I have learned, or life has made me learn, is to overcome fear. Okay, and there were various challenges. So one important thing to overcome fear was to accept challenge, which I was hiding. Okay, so probably all my school life was largely to hide away with challenges, problems, or to speak out your voice. Okay, which probably life came to a juncture saying it became a matter of so-called existence, and it was like, you are on the cliff, and both side, you have this deep, you have to take a deep dive. So on which side you have to do? So only side that I took was to overcome fear, where I had to face it. And probably the life lesson was, even if you think that anything which is not in your capacity, and you feel saying, no, I don't want to attempt, let me tell you that obviously when there is a divine force that you believe in, or anyone that you believe in, if you really want to overcome that, please face it, come out, challenge yourself. That is one important aspect, which probably in this era, that you talk about parenting, you talk about, there are various parenting, by the way, that one would shield. I would say for each and every educator and parent, please throw students to various challenges. Be there on their side, don't neglect or don't deprive, because this kills the entire creativity and their enthusiasm, which can bring them to fear. So if you need to make each and every child confident and come out of fear, support them, be on your side, let them make mistakes. And this is one of the biggest lesson that each family and a teacher should adopt while they are in their routine life, off the campus or in the campus.
So that's a lesson I'm sure everyone can resonate with. Challenges are a part of everyone's life, and facing them is the only way to conquer them. And now we have an unavoidable challenge for you, and this is our rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Okay, I hope this firing is not going to come from all over.
Oh no, don't worry. Mumbai or Singapore?
Mumbai.
Textbooks or real world projects?
Real world projects.
Which was the tougher launch, Gillette Mac 3 or your first education magazine?
Gillette Mark 3.
Okay, IQ or EQ?
EQ.
The classroom of the future, virtual reality or an outdoor campus?
Outdoor campus.
One skill you wish you had learned in college?
To have girlfriends. I missed it.
The learning from failure or learning from success?
Learning from failure and build on success.
One word to describe the future of education?
Optimistic, and it has to be real. That's the heading of our movie.
Let's continue with a few more. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird. I mean, it's not very early bird, like 7.
Your,
Definitely not night.
your best experience, consumer products or education?
By way of satisfaction, education. By way of business, obviously, consumer.
Pen and paper or a tablet?
Tablet.
Favorite school memory?
Favorite school memory. Oh God, my favorite school, sports days.
Favorite educational campus you have visited?
Whoa, my goodness, you're giving me like a 4,000. But this has touched my heart, and if I can quote it, this is nothing to do with my education world rankings or anything. I like the vibes of a school called Pallikodam in Kerala, and that's really touched me.
Marks or character?
Character.
Creativity or critical thinking?
Creativity.
Podcast or a book?
Podcast.
One education buzzword you would like to see disappear?
Grades or this marks and marks.
Well said. So before we conclude, one advice for the youth who is watching us right now.
Okay, so for youth, stay grounded. The coming time is not about money. The coming time is going to be how better decision makers you are. So while it comes to anything in your future which has to be where you are there at the juncture to decide which is good or bad, or which is good for you or which is good for your friends or your family or your country, please have a decision which is value based and which has an impact when you're going to see for all, not on one. So take your decision very wisely, very carefully. That's would be my advice.
There you have it, everyone. Mr. Bhavin Shah's journey reminds us that education isn't just about textbooks and timetables. It's about vision, mentorship, and building pathways for future generations. With his unique vantage point of having worked at both grassroots and global levels, he brings out an understanding of education only a few people can actually match. His work bridges schools, universities, parents, and policymakers, shaping the very ecosystem in which young people learn and grow. Today, we've been extremely privileged and honored to hear from someone who has not only observed education evolve, over decades who has actively participated and steered that change. It's been a conversation that's provided insight, perspective, and definitely a lot of inspiration. I'm sure educators and students alike have had their dreams colored and illuminated in a new light. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.